Welcome to the Ycast. Today we're going to talk about Isekai for weeks 10 through 12. I'm your host Malachi, and today I'm joined by Yubel.
Hello.
So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and start with the Valkyries. Weeks 10 and 11, they faced Booz and Derp, winning both matches. In week 12, they lost to Cold in a divisional match. They've been doing really good.
Yeah, very surprising.
Yeah, especially considering they've been rotation locked.
Yep.
The last few weeks.
Yep.
Let's actually talk about someone who's made a bit of a comeback this season and has been a big reason why they've been winning these matches. That being Fasha. She's still on her defense build on Goku AI, and she's been doing pretty good.
Yeah, she really has. She definitely kicked the Boo's butt. She just smacked Boo around like he was nothing and proceeded to kick Kid Boo's butt too. And a little bit of Pool. I think did she go elite in that match against Boo's? Either she went elite or borderline elite. Like, she just whooped Boo's ass, so it was an uphill battle for Boo. So
she did 98,900 points.
Wow, so close.
So very, very close, but not quite. But yeah, she did really well. Against your team, I think she was out. She was not out at all, since, as I just said, they're rotation locked between Aurelie and 18 right now.
I don't. Did she do a lot? I believe 18 super went elite against Derp, and I believe Fasha did fine. Pan got wrecked, and I think Vegeta cleaned up. I want to say that's how it went.
Yeah. She did 26,000 that week. I think that's because she cleaned up against maybe Kibito Kai. Well, I mean, when Android 18 does 120,000, there's only so much she can do.
Yeah.
But I think she cleaned up against Kibito Kai and then got wrecked by Nova. Yeah. Or at least did okay against Nova. And then I think she might have still been in... It's been a while, but she might have still been in the wings with 18 at the very end. I don't really remember. I just remember Pan getting vaporized and 18 destroying things. But yeah.
I kind of don't like that they kind of switched her blue during the week against Cold. You know? It seems like she was working with that defense +2, and I know it's only one change, and I know it's only one blue, but I kind of feel like blue can be a major change to how the computer performs. So I kind of just sort of stuck with the defense +2. Like, I don't know why you went up to defense +3, attack -1 all of a sudden.
I don't know how they do things on their team, but I personally subscribe to the same theory that Geom does, which is the AI is not really aware of the Pataras that it has. I also don't really remember how they did against Cold, other than the fact that they lost. So
I believe the match was close. It was close. Yeah, it was just your usual, Frieza pulls it out of his butt at the last second W. So.
That's right. That's when Frieza ult spammed against everybody.
Yeah.
And that might actually be the reason why, is they know that Cold is going to have at least one person who is built to ult spam, and so maybe they just wanted a little bit extra defense against that.
Yeah.
Personally, I probably would have just gone for buying a defense +1 boost.
Yeah.
If they had the Zenny for it, which I believe they do, but that is neither here nor there. Because then you just have defense +3 and no attack minus.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it can work either way, especially for someone. I kind of disagree a little with an attack minus on a melee character like that, but whatever. However, let's move on to. Let's just move on to Pan. Pan started off the season really well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't recall her doing all that great the last few weeks, though.
Yeah, she hasn't been doing too hot. In the booze match, she did. I think she did okay in the booze match, but she was.
Yeah, she did 51K against your team.
Yeah,
Although,
she hit Evil Boo with like a Kamehameha, and I think she fought a pool. So
okay, and a pool being brand new that week, untested, that could be part of that.
yeah,
So
she got wrecked against Dirt, but that was Nova, and then I don't really remember what she did too much in the cold match. I remember she got ulted in the face. So
yeah, and an ult in the face is never that's never too helpful.
I don't know. Like, I feel like she was doing better early in the season when she was on the defense build, and I don't know. Now she's on more of like a B2 build, which is okay, I guess. Like, the guitar is kind of all over the place with it. Super plus one donates for staying power, but I feel like if she was the second defense, like if it was her and Fasha both on defense, I feel like they would do a little bit better with those two staying out. Especially since she already has the Dendays. Just make her more the second defense player and with Fasha, but hey, whatever works.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say too much. I think, her week against your team, and I think even before that, I don't think she's been a defense build. No, because early in the season, she was a melee build with attack +1. Although, never mind, she did have a defense build without healing early on in the season as well. So, maybe.
I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have one of the highest win-loss records in the league right now. So
this is very true. So, but let's move on to Android 18, who has been pretty good. She was only in week 11, where, since their rotation launched, they had to bench her weeks 10 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And she made a hell of a performance.
Yep. Not something that they can do often, though.
Yeah. I mean, she was on a super build with a free Draconic Aura to counter possible Power Body Kabutokai, which came in a little handy.
Yeah. It helped her cut through Dodoria, which is interesting because Dodoria relies on a lot of that heavy stun hits, but she wasn't getting too stunned by him and just kind of cut through Dodoria really easily. So.
Yeah. Well, even that week, most of her damage was through B2s, if I recall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not much to talk about there. So she was just in the 1 week. It'll be interesting to see, weeks 13 and 15, what happens, because she's been pretty much on the same build. The same core build.
That build that they did right there in that week with Eternal Life, they can't usually do it because Aurelia has healing.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see if they can replicate similar effects, like with when Android 18 had Power Body, or High Tension as the replacement for Eternal Life. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that.
Yep.
So let's talk about the other Android on the team that I would never want to have on my team. That being Aurelia. She was in weeks 10 and 12. She didn't put in a ton of damage against your team, but that's probably just more due to Fasha being amazing than anything else.
She fought her entire time. She got in a couple clashes with Kid Buu. They both had Dragon Power. I believe she lost a clash and won a clash. So,
yep.
And then majority of her fight was against Evil Buu, who's sort of a countering melee monster, but he's not good against short people. So she got some good licks in, but it was mostly just Evil Buu just all over her with the melee game. So,
right.
So overall not bad. And then a week against Cold, I'm not a big fan of Aurelia starting. I've never been a big fan of Aurelia starting. And she kind of broke even, which is not really what you want to see.
Right. Oh, so the thing is with Androids, it's kind of hard. Android starters can be done. Aurelia and 18 are both some of the characters I would say can do it, especially with the right build. And that does bring up a point I want to talk about in a second. But the thing is that if you unless you give them Rising Fighting Spirit, which when they're starting they do give them that, or at least they have been the last couple weeks. Androids don't really, since they only passively charge, it is kind of hard for them to get all the way up to full power.
Mm-hmm.
And so having them start, you either need to have them as a melee build where they're not dependent on that charge, or not going to be they're not going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's interesting that they do that. Unlike you with the androids, they like to do a lot of like, all right, well, we're gonna have the key minus, no, even out or bringing it up, and just roll with it. They do that a lot with 18 and with Aurelia, where it's a lot of super +2 key -1, but no fighting spirit, no launcher support, no high tension, none of that to make up for it.
Yeah. I will. That does bring a point. Both 18 and Aurelia have been getting super +2 lately. Since they have to be rotated out, which might be a problem for them come the postseason when they have to figure out who they want to give the super +1 and super +2.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see during the playoffs. Which, of course, they're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs.
Yep.
Muscle, we're going to talk about them, but, Val's, they're right, I don't know, they're the top spot in the Isekai, right?
Yep, they are top spot. They, depending on how they do the next few weeks, they could theoretically not keep it to my team. But that would be basically they lose all their matches and we win all our matches.
Yeah, because they have a tiebreaker.
Because they have tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
So that would also have to do a few things with my team as well. But we'll get to that. But yeah.
Is it just Vegeta?
So we just have Vegeta. He was in all 3 weeks. I remember him at least being okay every week. Because he's been a heavy melee build for him.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy melee build, Ginyu AI. He's done his job. I mean, I think at this point we're not likely to see Videl coming out.
No.
Unless, Val's really found a good build for her.
Yeah.
I know he did like the last 2,000 points of damage against your team in week 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went up against Nova, I think, against Derp. And then I think against Colt. I remember him doing okay.
Yeah.
I haven't done the stats for that match yet, so when I get to it, I'll probably be reminded of how well he did or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, since I remember that one being more Frieza just destroying them at the very end, I would imagine he did well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no. But on the whole, good job, Valkyries. And let's move on to the next team, that being the Androids, my team. We fought and lost against Cold, Saiyans, and Majins. Cold was divisional. And to summarize my feelings the last 3 weeks, screw Cell.
He went being so good to just turning into crap. Like, God.
Someone decided to flip the crap switch on Cell, and it showed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to start with him. He was in weeks 10 and 12. He was on the same build pretty much both weeks with super +2, some healing, and launches to negate the charge penalty along with TNAI. Week 10, he had a boost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, on paper, the build's good. He used to be good. There's really no changes. And all of a sudden, he went from being, 60, 70K to, 20. So, I don't know. I really don't know what is up with Cell. And hopefully, he stays broken for at least one more week. I know he's in against the Boo, so if he can stay to only 20K against the Boos, I'd be fine with that. But yeah, he definitely stepped up. It's weird that now he's breaking and being weird when it's almost time to go into the playoffs, and it's just not what you guys need right now. But
yeah,
I know that you, as coach, you always get that 3 week in a row of L's, so maybe you could, shape it up and get back to
and
W's.
for those who aren't aware, ever since I became coach, there's been always a 3 week stretch where no matter how much work or planning I put into it, my team just decides to lose 3 weeks in a row, and then it goes back to normal. Hopefully that ends this time around with a resounding crushing of my next opponent.
No, you're going to lose. You're going to get wrecked. You're going to be like, oh, whoa, wow, Sal, you did like 2K.
Well, if he ends up against Kid Buu, I mean, that will just be dirt versus derp at this moment. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
But yeah, no, don't really know what's going on with him. There's some tests I'd like, probably gonna, since Perfect Form Cell is fairly well tested, we'll probably review a few of his AI tests and see if there's anything that's fairly promising. If he doesn't snap out of it this week, because he went, so weeks 8 and 9, he did 7 B2s, both matches, ended up doing around 80k. Same build, weeks 10 and 12, he's doing 20, 25k, and 1 or 2 B2s.
Yep.
So that is the sum of, that sums up what happens when the RNG hates you.
Yep.
So let's move on to, how about 17? He was in weeks 10 and 11, and, Tac Build, Eternal Life, again, UAI. Week 10, he did almost 60k. Week 11, he did 46k. So
he's still good, but you really can't go too wrong with just, slap on some melee Pataras, give a character Eternal Life, and let them, do their thing. I believe you're switching his AI back to Majin Buu AI.
Yes, we are. For a very simple reason. There were a couple times over the last few weeks where if you look closely, you can see 17 just sitting and doing nothing. That reached a crescendo against the Saiyans. He basically sat there for 2 bars and did nothing against, I believe it was Scout or Vegeta. Now, granted, he still did 46k. 90% of that was probably on his last bar and a half of health. We could have put, given that everyone else on the team did at least 40k, it's entirely possible that had 17 not just been screwing around for those first 2 bars, we might have actually won that match, which was kind of frustrating. But, yeah, whatever. We're putting him back on Buu AI because, as inconsistent as it could have been, it was at least trying to do crap.
Yeah.
So, moving on, Ader, he was in all 3 weeks on pretty much the same build, which was Super Plus, Kibito Secret Art, Savior, and some other Charge Plus. So,
I believe he always does his 40k, right?
Pretty much, I think the only week he didn't do that was maybe against Cold, but even then I think he got really close going up against Metacooler, who was patently not who I wanted him to fight. And even then he did 35k against a very heavy defense build.
Yeah.
And who is another android.
Yep.
So,
and his melee's not as good.
And Ader just has worse melee, and Metacooler did a lot of melee, along with some really good B2 combos.
Yeah.
So,
Ader is always consistent and good, but my issue with him being consistent as good is that while he's always consistently good, he's always consistently average, so he's going to do his 40k, but it's not very often that Ader would do more than that, and when the rest of your team, like Cell, for example, is doing like 20, Ader's not the guy who's going to be making that up, so...
Yeah, it's just... If you've got ideas on how to improve him, I am happy to listen.
He's just so consistent and good. Like, I'm not saying that Ader's the issue. You know, Ader is, if he's pulling off his 40K and always doing 40K and always doing well, then I'm happy. Thumbs up. You know, I'm actually glad that he's out. I was actually worried about him being in and, you know, pulling off his average 40K. You know, I'd much rather roll the die with Cell being crap or Baby not, you know, pulling his 40K than average Ader always coming out. So yay, Ader's out against Booze. Yay. I thought Ader was gonna be out. I thought so.
Well, if you look at our lineup coming up, we've got you, Derp, and Ginyu.
Yeah.
There's no way Ader's being benched against Derp.
That's what I thought.
Because of Devil Might Beam.
Yep.
Nope, he might go up against Nova. He might not. Whatever. And then Ginyu, Ader can probably hold his own against anyone except Birder.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, I have ideas on how to nullify that.
Yep.
So, i.e., put Ader last so he doesn't have to fight Birder. So,
all right.
Or am I just psyching you out, Ginyu?
I don't know.
Take your choice. I don't know.
I mean, by then, it would literally be the last week and they could see exactly who's sitting out, but... yeah. Anyway.
So, not much to say about him. So, we'll see that Cell, 17, Ader. Let's talk about 16. He was in weeks 11 and 12. Week 11, he was on TNAI. Week 12, he was on Cell AI.
How did he do? Because I'm not a big fan of 16, so...
He did... I want to say he did 50K on Cell AI against Garlic Jr. and Spopovich.
Okay.
Yep, 16 was our MVP last week, doing 56K.
It's a nice little combo, that Master Throw to his fist coming at you again, so...
Yep.
How's the Unleashed Key? How is that just that one point? Is that helping him win any clashes, or has he just been clashing against people who have higher? Because if he fought against Cell Jr. and Spopovich, then I know that they have higher. So
they do. I think he might have won one clash against Garlic. I don't remember. It's mostly there. It's usually only there when we think he's going to be up against people who are on a clash team that don't have Clash Pataras.
Okay. Because
he usually doesn't clash. Like, if you actually look at my team as a whole does not clash.
Okay.
The only exception to that is Baby Vegeta.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me just read off our clash numbers up through week 11. Android 16, 2. Android 17, 3. Cell, 5. Ader, 6. Baby Vegeta, 9.
So you definitely throw a little bit of power rage on Baby.
Baby Vegeta is the one most likely to get into clashes. Why? I don't know, considering he doesn't have B2.
I don't know, maybe it's that
Rushes.
AI that he's on.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Broly AI, get aggressive, I'm chasing after you, and that's all you need is for him to try to rush in to get in there, and the other person was like, alright, no, let's clash, so.
Yeah. So, speaking of Baby on Broly AI, how about we talk about him, because I don't know that there's much else to say about 16.
Nah.
I mean, he's fairly consistent. He does his job. You know, we're going to see if Cell AI works on him.
Alright, so Cell AI again.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it worked good last week. It was a little more flighty than it was in tests, but yeah, we'll see. You know, hopefully 16 will be the new Nom on Cell AI.
Evil Boo's also on Cell AI. I wish we could get a Nom.
So, anyway, moving on to Baby Vegeta. So I believe he was in all 3 weeks. Indeed, he was. Basically the same build. Defense, Dendays, and a Clash boost with maybe some charge. Or just heavy defense. And then this past week he had Eternal Life since 17 was out. Where he actually did the worst because he was up against Maju.
Yep.
So.
Yep. You know, he pretty much got out defense. You know, he got out melee, he got out fought, he got ultimated in a couple of times. Like Maju was still seems like Maju's on his A game, and Baby he just kind of got outclassed there. So
Yep. So there's that. I mean, he is doing his job. He's doing better than Giro probably would be under the same circumstances.
yeah.
Especially considering without Giro we can actually use Eternal Life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know there's much else to say. I mean, he does get into some clashes, so he's usually got Power of Rage to help him win those.
Yeah, he should have Power Rage this upcoming week because 17 is going to have the Eternal Life. So.
Yep. And, we're trying to figure out, what that other point should be for his build, whether it should be a latent energy, or we've also seen that he has a slow charge rate, so we've tried giving him Fighting Spirit to be a little bit better. Because a couple weeks ago we gave him Launch of Support, and that seemed to fix his charge issues.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if that can continue. But, yeah.
I'm just glad you didn't make the same mistake. We were hoping that maybe you'd run it back with Baby starting again, and we'd start Gohan Buu, and he would pretty much get outclassed like he did against but no, he started 17.
Yeah, well, so. we started Baby 2 weeks in a row. We're not going to start him 3 weeks in a row.
Where's Baby again? Third or fourth?
Third.
Third, alright, so...
Against
if
the pool.
It lines up, it should be a
remember your
pull.
lineup.
Yeah, if it lines up, it should be a pull. No, Poole has some melee, so hopefully he can crack that defense. Hoping. If not, then alright. But I mean, that's probably the best person you could line up Baby with because if he was second, that's Kid Buu. If he was last, that's a melee Evil Buu. So he would definitely get cracked. So.
Well, the way Kid Buu's been playing lately, that might actually work in Baby's favor.
We'll see.
Yep.
Yay.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But we've talked about my team probably a little too long. Let's move on to Cold.
Yep.
Where they've had, whereas we lost every week, Cold has won every week.
Yeah.
They won against my team, Dragon Ball Warriors, and the Vowels. So let's start off by saying, good job, Cold.
Yep.
Yay.
Yep. 2 divisionals and Dragon Ball Warriors. And some of them are really close fights. Goddamn Frieza trying to give everybody a heart attack.
Yep. So let's just go ahead and start with Frieza, since you brought him up.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on a charge build, and he's been their anchor the last few weeks, being that last person in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, very heavy charge build with Kibito's Secret Art. And then this last week, they also gave him Style of the Strong as a boost.
Spent 10 Zenny?
Yep, 10 Zenny for those beautiful, beautiful ultimates.
Yeah, no pluses, and it did like 19, 20K?
I think so. It was pretty close. It was at least 17, 18K.
Yeah.
I
need stats on that match. Stats, let's go.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, after this coming week, stats won't be an issue for me. It's not like we've only got a couple more weeks left, but yeah, life also gets less busy.
That anchoring Frieza, give everybody a heart attack, blessing out the ults, and just bringing it back for the team. Even if they're in a losing situation, Frieza just brings it back and just pulls out the W out of his butt at like the last second. Like, if he can stay like that and stay that powerful anchoring, like, it's looking like Cole's gonna have a scary time and a scary team for the playoffs.
I think they will. The big thing to remember is just what made Final Form Frieza so freaking scary this last week was the fact that he had that Style of the Strong as a boost.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, they can't pull that out for much longer.
Yeah, they can't do that for the playoffs. So.
But yeah, no, as I think they've kind of got Frieza fixed. They've got him on it with that key build.
Yep.
Because I think he's done pretty. Like, he didn't do fantastic damage-wise against my team, I think, because he was basically in there for, like, all of the bar and a half. He was basically in there to finish off Baby Vegeta and part of Cell,
yep.
I think. I don't remember that far back. But at week 11, he did 57K, and then he probably did at least 60k, if not more, against Valkyries.
Mm-hmm.
So, mostly through his ults, if I remember correctly, because I remember at least 2 ults were thrown.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, let's talk about his counterpart, Mecha Frieza. He was in weeks 10 and 11, benched week 12, and he was on a defense build with Majin Buu AI. That's a little different.
That's a lot big difference. Definitely not the also spamming ultimate B2 heavy that we're used to seeing.
It's not, but I feel like it actually just kind of fills a void that Cold had been having.
More defense?
Not so much defense, but more melee oriented. Because he doesn't have a. I mean, I personally would suggest maybe replacing that defense +2 with attack +2. If he's on Majin Buu AI, because they're not giving him any healing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say either. Well, let me take that back. Week 10, he had Dende's healing. Week 12, week 11, he had Power of Rage.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably replace that Power of Rage with Dende's on him, or replace that defense +2 with an attack +2. But that's just me.
Yeah.
But he's done well both weeks that he was in.
It just seems like it's going to be a lot of clashing when we get to the playoffs. Because it's like, all right, Metacool's on defense, King Cold's on defense, Mecha Frieza's on defense. Like, who's where with the roles, and you bring on all 5? How's that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are still some questions there, which I think if they move Mecha Frieza to attack +2, they would probably solve a lot of those questions. But I mean, I think that's something that that's something they still have time to work out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can't think of much else to say.
No, there's nothing really too special about him anymore. He's not as sparkly as he used to be, but he still does his job.
I mean, he does his job. He is doing better than at the beginning of the season when they were trying to keep him as a ult spammer along with Frieza. And I think that it's working for him. So let's move on to Cooler then. Cooler was in weeks 10 and 12 on an attack build. And what makes him fun is they've been giving him some B1 Pataras. Week 10, he had Dragon Spirit, and week 12, he had Exquisite Skill and Dragon Spirit.
Mm-hmm. What are his B1s? I don't even remember what the hell his B1s are.
I think he has a Telekinesis, and maybe, I don't remember what his other one is. Maybe a Finish Sign or something like that. But yeah, the Telekinesis is probably why he has that Exquisite Skill. And then, the rest of the build is pretty straight up, pretty straightforward melee build. Attack +1, quick fast attack, serious, Power of Rage. Probably the one thing I might nitpick at is, latent energy on him in week 12 on an attack build. But I mean, when you're just looking for 1 point and you can't give him, he's already got attack +1, quick fast attack, and serious. And, all your fighting spirits are used up. Latent energy is not exactly it's not horrible.
Yeah, so. Just latent energy pairs a lot better with other defense, Pataras, and healing and all that. You guys know.
Yeah.
You guys know. But yeah.
I mean,
it's good to see that they actually have a very competent meleeer. Because Cold has always been that B2 defense team. Their melee game hasn't been that strong, so it's good to see that they actually have someone doing a good melee game.
Yep. So he's been doing great. I mean, some minor, even what I'm saying is a very minor nitpick. Mm-hmm. So don't really take it to heart too much. So let's move on to the sole android on the team, Metacooler. He was in all 3 weeks on a very heavy defense build. So probably the unique thing about him is for 2 of those weeks he had Master Blast.
So
he's done.
So he has attack attack -1 and Master Blast.
Yeah.
Ugh, like, what do you? Are you punching me with your fist, or are you like hitting me with marshmallows? Like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, attack +2 is a pretty hefty negative. So we, something just to be mindful of. But
I mean, if it works and you're getting all the W's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it would be the key reason behind it, but I mean, it's not terrible if they saw that he was really using those rush blasts, because I don't think they're terrible. But I would probably. So my thing is, just looking at his build, I would probably replace that, and because weeks 10 and 11 he had Master Blast and Hatred of Saiyans. Week 12 he did not. He had Dende's Healing and Power of Rage, and Defense +3 was Sirius. So a little more traditional melee build. But I mean, I personally, I don't hate the build. I would just probably replace Master Blast and Hatred of Saiyans with Launches or Tension Up. Just because he's an android, and Frieza AI has shown a tendency to throw out those B2s, so it's not like charge is gonna go wrong with him.
Sure.
So, and I'm not gonna, if you've already got your Launches supports both taken up, Tension Up is probably gonna be basically equivalent on him. So, but moving on, let's talk about the king himself, King Cold, who was in weeks 11 and 12 in Piccolo AI, and week 11 he was more of an offensive melee build. Week 12 he was more of a tank build with attack +1 as a boost. My recollection is he's been doing pretty good for King Cold. Not let me see what his average is. His average is still 35k, but I mean, for King Cold, that's doing pretty good. I mean, he's basically taking his man, not quite, but almost. And I think that's probably the best, probably not the best you can expect out of him. But given that, he's got one B2, that's a very easily dodged B2, and the other is a rush, I think. And his ultimate is a rush.
It's a super explosive wave, full power death beam, and then his ultimate's a rush.
Yeah, his ultimate's a rush, and then, I think you could definitely get him up a little bit better to 40k, but I mean, he's been doing well for King Cold. He has been definitely contributing his parts to these wins.
Yeah.
So, all right, and so so do you have any final comments for Cold?
No, you definitely stepped it up. I'm glad that Boost faced you in week 1 when you were just kind of shaky. So now, since you're all good, you could just wreak havoc in the rest of the season and maybe get back up to North Kai.
Yep.
Or at least stay in East.
Yeah. So let's move on to the last team, that being Team Muscle. Week 10, they lost to Derp. Week 11, they won against Earth Defenders. And week 12, they lost to the Boos.
Yay, Boos finally got a win.
Oh, well, so let's start off by first saying that unless there were some serious miscalculations on my part, I am pretty sure that they are completely out of the playoffs.
Yes, they are completely and utterly out of the playoffs. They lost all their divisionals, and even if Cold wins them all and they lose them all, even if they break even with Cold, they'd still not make it. So
right.
They're out.
So, yeah. So it kind of sucks for them. They've had a rough season. I think at the very least, if they won the next few weeks, they could at least make it to West Kai. But yeah, it's looking like they might be spending a season. This might just be the time for them to start testing in full, just going all out in their testing and figuring out what works and doesn't. So
Yeah. There's some things that definitely work, and there's some things that don't. And I think if we tweak it and come back next season, in season 9, I definitely think that Muscle will be a threat. So don't think that just because they didn't do that well this season doesn't mean that they're going to be crap next season. So
right. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's start with one of their newest members, Trunks. He was in all 3 weeks, and he has been on a defense build.
He's so good. He's definitely one of the best things about Muscle, especially in the Boo match. Like, I was scared he was about to bring it back.
Yeah, he has definitely been one of their rocks this season. I think he is not. I don't think he's their strongest player, but I think he is their second because their strongest player has been 13. But yeah, so ignoring Master Roshi for a second because he hasn't had the time to prove himself one way or the other. 13 was at 45, averaging 45k. Super Trunks was 42k, and they were the only 2 above 40k.
Yeah.
Like
sometimes Trunks could be really bad and only get like 20k, and sometimes he could be like really good and get like 60, 70k.
Yeah,
he's off at times, but I think he's a good pickup. I like the build. The defense build works for him, especially with the strength of the Super Saiyan. And, you just throw in a little bit of indignation, and he does B2s, and they hurt,
That they do. I mean, I think, both... I think Piccolo AI is a good choice for him when he's on a defense build. I like the fact that he's on a defense build because that was something that, we hadn't really seen on Muscle before. And I think it's working for him. There probably is some room to tweak that and maybe, maybe not make him a clasher. Let me double check its clash numbers real quick to see if it's really worth it. Never mind. He's been in 12 clashes this season so far, up through week 11. Right. Keep that dragon power on him. Never mind.
Yeah, he definitely does do some clashing.
Yep. All right. Can't think of much else to say. So since we already mentioned him, let's move on to the star of the team, that being Android 13. He was in weeks 10 and 11. Week 10, he was on a heavy charge build with indignation and power over age. And then week 11, he was on a fairly heavy melee build.
I was actually shocked that he was out against Boos, because generally he does really well against Boos, so...
That could have just been I don't know what their rotation schedule looked like. That could be more due to them not wanting to be rotation locked, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So, but yeah, that was a little surprising considering how badly they needed that win.
Yeah, they really did need that win.
So that being said, they also still came. That was, if I remember correctly, your match with them this past week was pretty close.
Oh, yeah, thanks to Trunks bringing it back.
Yeah, that's right. So
I think it was still between 2 players, because he took out Gohan Boo. Oob beat Trunks, so Oob was still in, and I believe 1 bar of Evil Boo was still. So they still had a little bit more to go on the last bar, the last stand, but yeah, it was just, who are we talking about? 13. We're talking about 13, and he's not even in the match we're talking about, so let's talk about 13.
Yeah. No, the only thing I'm going to say is I don't like the fact that I'm seeing a lot of switching around of his builds, and I'm seeing a lot of Trunks AI paired with a B2 oriented build for the most part, or at least B2 blue Pataras. Although to be fair, 13 might be an exception. Just looking at the numbers, he's thrown out 17 B2s this season, which is really low for a B2 AI. Because if you look at, let me just pull Cell's numbers. Cell has thrown 37 B2s up through week 11, and Ader was at 26. I mean, even Baby Vegeta was at 21.
I don't know. Maybe it's like a combination of his transform state and his non-transform state. So maybe they want him to be like aggressive, but then when he transforms, give him that super up for them them trucker hat deadly bombers, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, in my experience, because Trunks is such a heavily melee-oriented AI, I feel like they need to just put him on a melee build, dedicated melee build, and maybe with some, more of a spam melee type thing where, he'll have attack +2 and then launch a support and fighting spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would make better use of his strengths that way. If they want him to be a melee player, if they want him to be a B2 player, which I don't know how they feel about that, then they may need to really look at giving him a different AI like Tien or Chaozu AI, because that would probably fix. Because the way I look at it is, there's no point in using a super plus, putting your super +1 or your key +2 blue Patara on a character that's not going to throw out B2s. And because, as I just said earlier, 13's averaging 45k, he's easily a 50 or 60k character. So, yeah. So, moving on to, let's talk about Bojack next.
It definitely seems like they're trying to fill in that melee role with similar copy-paste off of Gohan's of last season, and I can't do it all the time. I don't know. I think he can be a fine mailer, but you need a lot of tune-up. You do.
Yep.
You do.
So
I don't think I don't think you just rip off of Gohan's and be like, oh, yep, that works.
Right. So I will note one very promising sign. So he was in weeks 10 and 12. Week 12, they changed his AI to Broly AI. And if I remember correctly, he did at least okay against your team, did he not?
He did 32k.
Okay. So, but that was against Evil Boo, right?
Gohan Boo.
Gohan Boo, who's probably one of your better characters. So,
yep.
I wouldn't call that a loss on their part. Probably the only nitpick I would have is they gave him latent energy. Maybe change that to QFA, especially since I don't see that being used elsewhere.
I believe that was just a lot of copy pasta from his builds from last season, because I believe Gohan's did that.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that's different was that they went with Broly instead of Ginyu, because I believe that's what Gohan's did, is Ginyu, which they were trying earlier in the season, but I guess they changed it.
Oh, no, they were trying that all the way up through week 10. That was the only AI he had been on.
Wow, so yep. So you tried copy pasting Gohan's and it didn't work, so back to the drawing board.
Well, I wouldn't say it wasn't that it wasn't working, it's just that people had figured it out.
Yeah, I believe by the end of last season they started figuring it out, even though I can't really say that because Gohan's did win the whole thing, so.
Yeah, well, the reason why Gohan's won the bowl was, by the time they got to the bowl, Bojack was not the reason why they won.
No.
He was barely taking, if I remember correctly, he might have been taking his man against who was the team that they faced last season? Was it Muscle that they faced in the bowl?
I believe it's Muscle they faced in the bowl.
If I remember correctly, by the time they got to the bowl, Bojack was barely taking a man before he was getting knocked out on that build. Because he had a lot of trouble in the playoffs, and even at the very end of the main season, he was starting to have trouble and was not pulling out those 80, 90, 100k weeks anymore. So I am glad to see them, trying to shake things up, continue to evolve. Hopefully it will work out for them and work out better for them next season.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and
talk about why they're really not doing well.
Yeah, let's talk about Broly. So he was in weeks 11 and 12. Let me see how he did against Earth Defenders. Because before the last cast, they did change his AI, which I think was a good move. Because Chaozu AI was just not performing well. Nope. Well, against Earth Defenders, he did 21k. I don't know if that's because he was a closer, or he just legitimately struggled. too long ago for me to remember.
Mm-hmm.
How did he do in your match? Do you recall?
He's doing... Yeah. Is there anybody else to talk about? Or is it probably the last
Just
one?
Roshi.
Roshi, go ahead. You know what? Go talk about Roshi, and I will have his stats done in like a second, because I can multitask.
Okay. So yeah, they, speaking of Roshi, they did bring Roshi in to replace Blue, who had been struggling. Roshi's been doing pretty good.
Yeah. Roshi, he's definitely one of the, was one of the shimmers to possibly bringing it back. I believe he did pretty good in the Earth Defender fight, if I remember correctly.
He did 44k there, and he did 65k against who they faced week 10. Derp.
All right.
So
he did 30k against Booth, but I mean he was kind of against an aggressive Oob who kind of meleeed the crap out of him, so he didn't get to do the B2s that he would usually do.
Right. And I don't exactly see Roshi being the one to bring down a very heavy melee. Most weeks I wouldn't see Roshi bringing down Oob anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
right.
he's definitely one of the more consistent characters.
Well, it's only been 3 weeks. Let's give it some time, and then let's reevaluate that at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he does seem to be, that being said, he is a shining star for Muscle at the moment. So
yeah, they kind of probably regret even putting him out for General Blue.
Well,
not like Blue was bad.
Yeah, not that Blue is bad, and to be completely fair, I do believe Roshi was a problem child for them last season as well. And so it may have just been a case of, we still need time to figure out how to fix Roshi.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't until they were kind of forced to bring him out that they brought him out. But I do hope Roshi does well for them.
Yep.
So, now going back to Broly for a second, I do like the fact that they've started changing up his build and such. Changing up his AI, probably a little overdue for the season. Honestly, I think the biggest help will just be making him, so I will note this. Week 12, they did drop all the B1 Bataras from him, so he didn't have spiritual control or KSA or anything like that. But he did have dragon power.
It was probably situational to, facing Boo, so they're like, alright, get some clash on. Alright, I got his stats for that match. He did 37k. 38k.
So not terrible.
Not terrible, it's just he kind of hit a pull with an ult at like the last second on his last bar, so not including that ult, he didn't do too hot. He only threw out one B2.
Mm-hmm.
So, not including the ult. So
yeah. So, might still need some AI testing. Because, personally, I think that base Broly should be able to do fine on a B2 build. I don't know that the AIs that they've been using are the right ones to use. Mm-hmm. That being said, as a disclaimer, as always, I haven't seen your tests.
I mean, knowing them, they're just going to go right back to Super Saiyan, where he did really well in last season, and, that hopefully will fix the problem.
Honestly, can't blame them for that. I would probably at least make sure that they have, all their bases, if they want him as a B2, just make sure they have all their bases covered. But, at the same time, can't blame them for wanting to go back to Super Saiyan 1 and easier access to the monster.
Yeah, because I think we've seen it in the preseason, but I don't think we've really seen it much.
I think there's been 1 week where he went to Legendary Super Saiyan in the main season.
Okay.
So, alright, well, that finishes up the main going over win-loss records. Let's move on to predictions.
All right.
Start with Valkyries. For the last 3 weeks of the main season, they faced Afterlife, Majins, and Earth Defenders.
All right. Afterlife, they had to have 18 in. I could see them taking Afterlife, especially with
Hmm.
how 18 is and Fasha and all that. So I'm going to give them that. What was the next one?
Majins.
Margins. All right, they had to have Aurelia, no 18. I'm not sure if the bench sit out, but Margins, they're a fairly consistent team. So is Zardis, but I feel like possibly Pan or something could possibly pull them down or something. And I feel like overall Margins are a more consistent team, so I'm going to give it to Margins. And then what was the last one?
Earth Defenders.
Earth Defenders. That's a tough one. They had to have 18 back in, really out. I'm probably going to give that to Valkyries because they'll probably pull out the Eternal Life 18 card with Aurelia being out and just take that W again. So I'm going to say 2-1.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say 1-2. I really don't, even with Afterlife's best lineup, and I think that Val's on the whole are just a more solid team. While Pan is a drag to the team, I think with what we've seen from 18, Fasha, and then Vegeta, that they can compensate for that against Afterlife. Who, let's face it, while they are getting better, I still think they've got a lot of issues to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Majins and ED, I think both of them are just, at the moment, more consistent and stronger teams, and they'll be able to take Valkyries down. Especially since both of them are very happy to counter when they can, and just the fact that they know who's going to be sitting out from the Valkyries is going to be a huge asset to them.
Definitely.
That being said, as you said, there are some things that Val's can pull out that have been shown to be very difficult to counter. While I was impressed by 18 on Eternal Life, I don't expect to see that happening again against another team where they've got a solid lineup through and through. Because Derp, while yes, Nova is a powerhouse and most of the rest of the team is pretty solid, fighting against androids can be very tough for a lot of characters. And I think Derp just has one of those teams where they have characters who have a tough time fighting against someone who can be aggressive, like 18 can be.
Yeah.
So, but that's just, I think, we're going to go ahead and move on to androids. We face Booze, Derp, and Ginyu. Take it away, Yubel.
Booze, I think you're going to lose. I think you're just going to take that L, so let's go ahead and chalk that one up. Derp, it depends on if they have Nova, if your cell shapes up, hopefully. That's going to be a tough one for right now. I'm going to say no with the condition that Cell's been, Baby's been. You have a couple holes while Derp, if they bring in the Nova card, then you might just automatically lose that. And Ginyu, I'm assuming that you're probably going to sit out Cell against them, but the rest of your team seems like, if, consistinator. It really depends. I'm gonna say that you could probably beat Ginyu. So for now, I'm gonna say 1-2.
I'm going to say at least 2-1. We're going to win against you and against Ginyu, I'm pretty sure.
No, you're not. You're going to lose against Booze.
Derp is the big question. Like you said, a lot's going to come down to if Nova is benched or not. I hope he will be. But as you said, a lot's going to depend on if Cell shapes up. Baby is that we're working on him. Most weeks he can pull off his 40K. A lot for him just depends. A lot for him is situational. 8's always consistent. 16's usually pretty good, and hopefully with our new AI for 17, he'll be better than he has been the last couple weeks. So, moving on to Cold. Next 3 weeks, they face Rugrats, Namek, and Gohans.
Rugrats, that's a tough one, because that team is super consistent. And I'm not sure how many Frieza sits you still have to do and stuff like that. So right now I'm going to probably say Rugrats, just are just a more consistent team. What was it?
Okay. Namek and then Gohans.
Namek, I think they could beat Namek. And Gohans, I think you have to rate that freaking Gohans are going to not posting builds. I don't know. I'm probably going to give it to Gohans. They just seem like a stronger team stat-wise, and their consistency should be fixed by then. So I'm going to say 1-2 for right now.
I'm probably going to say 2-1. I think that they can take Gohan's for sure. Namek and Rugrats are both going to be toss-ups. While Namek's had a little bit of struggle the last couple weeks, they are a fairly consistent team, and I could see them taking Cold. Pretty much the same with Rugrats. Rugrats have been on a tear lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cold's going to pull one of those out. I don't think they'll be able to pull both of them out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
However, if Frieza keeps doing what he's doing, and just ults, throwing out those ults, maybe they can. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'll just go 2-1. I just don't see them taking both Rugrats and Namek and Gohan's all in a row right now.
Mm-hmm.
So Muscle. They face Saiyans, Ginyu, and Afterlife.
Saiyans are too consistent. I don't think they're going to win that. Ginyu and Afterlife are definitely teams that I could see them possibly getting some W's win. Like I said, it depends on who's in, who's out, and all of that. I'm going to say I'm going to at least give them one of those wins. So for now, I'm going to say 1-2.
So you're 1 and 2?
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be the same. As you said, Saiyans are just much more consistent. On the whole, I think they're a better team at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple wild cards of things that Muscle has been testing that remain to be seen how good they are, and we'll probably find that out over the next couple weeks. Is that Ginyu Afterlife? I feel like both of them at the moment are better teams than Muscle, but they're close enough in strength that I could see it going either way. But like I said for Cold, I just don't see Muscle bringing home both of those wins.
Yeah.
Without dropping a lot of Zenny on it. And I don't know how much they have left at the moment.
Shouldn't be too much after that 10. Like, they're the only 10 team that loves to do Stylish Strong. And every time they do it, it seems to work so well for them.
You mean, I think that's Cold. This is Muscle.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, they did just drop a lot of Zenny on their match against you, I believe.
Muscle?
Let me see. They dropped a lot of Zenny recently. No, it was week 11. They dropped 4 Zenny on their match against ED.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, it got in the W. Or hopefully helped.
It did.
They got to win.
It certainly helped.
Mm-hmm.
But that should be everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks everyone for joining us, and make sure to catch the other casts that we have done for weeks 10 through 12. See you around.
All right, thanks for watching.